Hello and welcome to this channel. Today we are going to explore one of the most famous unsolved mysteries of our time, the Loch Ness Monster. What started as a local Scottish legend has become a global phenomenon. And now, thanks to modern technology, we have more tools than ever to try and figure out if Nessie is real. So let's dive in and see what we can uncover. Part 1. The origins of the legend. To truly understand the Loch Ness Monster, we must first go back to the very beginning. And by beginning, I don't mean 1933 or the surgeon's photograph, but all the way back to the origins of the legend itself. Despite being popularly known as a modern monster, there are several pieces of evidence that suggest that some form of the Loch Ness Monster may have been part of the local lore long before the first officially recorded sighting. According to ancient Celtic folklore, there were many different types of water monsters and other strange creatures that inhabited lakes and rivers throughout Scotland. While there is no evidence that these creatures were actually real, they likely had a profound impact on the people who lived during the time and their descendants. After all, stories are incredibly resilient things and often survive for centuries in oral tradition before being written down. These creatures also frequently served as personifications of dangerous natural forces, much like personifications of gods and other supernatural beings. The first early record of a water beast that could potentially be related to the later Loch Ness Monster tales comes from Saint Columba, an Irish monk who traveled to Scotland in the 6th century. One day, while walking along the shore of a lake, he noticed a man swimming towards him. As the swimmer got closer, however, Columba realized that he was actually struggling to keep his head above the water and was dragging himself along the surface with his hands. As Columba reached out to help, the creature suddenly reared its head out of the water and roared at him. Stunned by what he was seeing, Columba reportedly made the sign of the cross and commanded the beast to leave him alone. Immediately, the creature dove back into the water and disappeared. Although we don't know exactly which lake this incident took place at, it is widely believed to be Loch Ness, given that Columba is also said to have banished a different kind of monster from the same lake. This is likely where the legend began. However, it's important to remember that during the 6th century, Scotland was a predominantly Christianized country, and the church had a huge amount of influence over how stories were told and retold through the years. It's possible that the creature described by Columba was actually based on a real animal that was more akin to a giant eel or otter. But as Christianity grew, the church had a tendency to demonize any animal that seemed overly vicious, large or strange. This is likely what happened to the original tale of whatever animal Columba encountered, which eventually turned into a story about a terrifying monster. Now, over the next few centuries, sporadic sightings of the monster continued, but none of them were ever recorded in writing. That is until 1745, when an author named Simon Fraser wrote about a mysterious animal that lived in the lake. He called it a water beast and described it as being around the size of a mastiff, with humps like a camel. However, his description is pretty vague, and there are a lot of inconsistencies between his account and the Loch Ness Monster we know today. Other sightings followed throughout the late 18th and early 19th centuries, but none were particularly reliable. It wasn't until 1933 that the legend of the Loch Ness Monster really began. Part 2. The Rise of Modern Nessie. In April of 1933, two colleagues from the University of Aberdeen in Scotland, Kenneth Wilson and Robert Kenneth Wilson, went on a road trip to the Highlands. During their journey, they stopped by Loch Ness and decided to take a walk around the shoreline. Suddenly, they heard a loud splash and saw what appeared to be a large animal moving across the lake. They quickly pulled out their cameras and snapped off a few shots. When the film was developed, they noticed that one of the photos showed a long-necked creature that looked suspiciously reptilian. They sent the photo to the local newspaper, and soon enough, the whole world was talking about the Loch Ness Monster. The media immediately latched onto the story, and within weeks, thousands of tourists were flocking to the area, hoping to catch a glimpse of the monster for themselves. Overnight, Nessie went from being a relatively unknown local legend to an international sensation. Over the years, dozens of other photos, videos, and sonar readings claimed to document Nessie and her behavior, but in reality, almost all of these have since been debunked. In 1975, for example, Tim Dinsdale filmed what appeared to be a long-necked creature moving through the reeds near the shore of Loch Ness. For decades, this footage was considered to be one of the best evidence we had of the monster. But in 2001, it was revealed that the entire thing was staged. Dinsdale had simply stuck the neck of a rubber toy crocodile onto a piece of wood and then placed it in the water to simulate the movement of a real animal. Of course, this was a huge disappointment for those who hoped that Nessie was real, but it was also a wake-up call for anyone who wanted to learn more about the monster. From that point on, researchers were much more careful about what they believed and only accepted new evidence if it could withstand rigorous scrutiny. Today, Nessie remains a popular figure in pop culture, and there are still plenty of videos claiming to show the monster circulating online. In 2018, for example, Iwan Hagen uploaded a video to YouTube that showed what appeared to be a large creature swimming through the water. The video went viral and racked up millions of views in just a few days. Some people were convinced that it proved the existence of the Loch Ness Monster, while others argued that it was a hoax. Eventually, O'Fowdegain admitted that the video was fake and that he had actually used CGI to make it look realistic. Even so, his video managed to fool millions of people, and it shows just how popular Nessie still is today. Part 3. Debunking the myths. So what does the science say about the Loch Ness Monster? Is there any evidence that can prove or disprove its existence? Well, there have been a lot of theories proposed over the years, but nothing has ever been confirmed. The most popular explanation for the Loch Ness Monster is that it's simply a large fish or a group of fish that have been blown up by the media. There are plenty of large fish in Loch Ness, including eels, catfish, and salmon. And it's not unheard of for them to grow to enormous sizes. In fact, a massive 315-pound catfish was caught in the loch in 1934. Supporters of this theory argue that it's much more likely that the Loch Ness Monster is just a giant fish than an unknown species of reptile or mammal. However, this doesn't explain all the eyewitness accounts that describe a long-necked creature with humps like a camel. Another popular explanation is that the Loch Ness Monster is nothing more than floating debris or logs that have been washed up from a nearby forest. After all, trees do fall into the lake every year and they can easily be mistaken for something more sinister. However, this theory also doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Most of the reported sightings of the Loch Ness Monster have come from people who were boating or flying directly over the lake. It's unlikely that they would have been fooled by something as mundane as a log or a branch. There's also the possibility that the Loch Ness Monster is an optical illusion caused by a combination of factors such as light, reflections, and the curvature of the lake. Some people believe that the most sightings occur when the sun is setting or rising, which creates long shadows that can easily be misinterpreted as being caused by an animal. Finally, there is the scientific consensus. After all these years of alleged research and investigation, scientists have yet to find any conclusive evidence that the Loch Ness Monster exists. In fact, most scientists agree that there isn't even a single piece of evidence that can't be explained by natural phenomena. Part 4. Exploring the evidence. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, there are still a few interesting leads that have been uncovered over the years. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence comes from a series of sonar scans that were conducted in the 1970s and 80s. The scans showed a large, unidentified object moving through the water at various depths. However, this is hardly proof of a monster, because there are plenty of other ways to make sonar readings go haywire. Some believe that there could be a large, undiscovered shipwreck at the bottom of the lake that is somehow interfering with the scans. Others argue that the large object is simply a school of fish or another natural phenomenon. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, there are still a few interesting leads that have been uncovered over the years. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence comes from a series of sonar scans that were conducted in the 1970s and 80s. The scans showed a large, unidentified object moving through the water at various depths. However, this is hardly proof of a monster, because there are plenty of other ways to make sonar readings go haywire. Some believe that there could be a large, undiscovered shipwreck at the bottom of the lake that is somehow interfering with the scans. Others argue that the large object is simply a school of fish or another natural phenomenon. More recently, a team of marine biologists used advanced underwater drones to scan the lake bed and search for signs of a monster. Once again, though, they came up empty-handed. Still, There have been a number of alleged sightings in recent years that might be worth looking into further. In 2005, for example, a tourist captured a photo of what appeared to be a long-necked creature sticking its head out of the water. Although the picture is blurry and could easily be a hoax, it has never been proven to be one. Similarly, there have been several reports of strange sounds coming from the lake that have been attributed to everything from underwater animals to old pipes. However, some argue that these sounds could be evidence of a previously undiscovered species of whale or dolphin. After all, Loch Ness is one of the deepest lakes in Europe, and it's entirely possible that an unknown species could be living in its murky depths. Ultimately, though, we may never know for sure. Part 5. The Psychology of Belief. Why do people believe in the Loch Ness Monster? What is it about this particular cryptid that makes it so popular in our culture? On the surface, it seems like a silly question. After all, there's no serious evidence that the monster is real, and most scientists agree that it probably does not exist. So why do people continue to believe in it? Well, there are a few possible explanations. For one, people are naturally curious about the unknown. We're always eager to learn about new cultures, places, and things, and that includes mysterious creatures like the Loch Ness Monster. There's just something inherently fascinating about the idea of a large, unknown animal living in our world. It makes us feel like there's still so much to discover and explore. Additionally, people are often drawn to Nessie because she embodies a sense of wonder and magic. In a world that often feels cold and uninviting, Nessie reminds us that there's still beauty and mystery left in the world. She's a symbol of hope and possibility, and that's something we can all appreciate. Finally, people continue to believe in the Loch Ness Monster because it gives them a sense of community. Those who believe in Nessie are part of a special group of people who are in the know. They're the ones who are brave enough to see what others refuse to see. This gives them a sense of belonging and camaraderie that can be hard to find elsewhere. In the end, the Loch Ness Monster is more than just a cryptid. She's a cultural icon that has captured the hearts and minds of people all over the world. Whether or not she's real doesn't matter as much as the fact that she makes us believe in the impossible. So what do you think? Is the Loch Ness Monster real or just a myth? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.